The debate regarding dynamic versus static links continues to rage on amongst webmasters, who each have their own perspective on which type of link is best for SEO. However, before we wade into that debate, let's have a quick look at what exactly dynamic and static links are. A static link is a web page that has a permanent URL that doesn't change. For instance, your homepage URL is most likely a static link, such as this one. Any other common system of URL naming for other permanent web pages of your site are likely to be static, such as the page to the About Us section, your portfolio, you name it. By contrast, if your website uses a script that can create custom web pages through a database query, then you have the ability to generate pages with dynamic links. Generally speaking, dynamic pages are the results of a database search driven by a user looking for specific information. The script takes the variables that the user typed in or checked for and searches a database to create a custom web page from a template, then inserts whatever specific information the user requested. For instance, a dynamic page link may look like this on your site. In this example, a user is looking for a pair of shoes from your online shop, and they want them in a certain color. They search your database, and your database locates that particular item, then creates a unique page using the product ID of 12345 and a color ID of 5. Often, the dynamic result of a search or query can be helpful to many users. Also, very often, this dynamic link is rewritten via the htaccess file to look like a static URL, so that search engines can more readily understand and contextualize it, and so that users can more readily view and pass along the link to others. So a site may choose to rewrite the generated dynamic URL into something like this. Obviously, written this way, it seems like it might pack a little more punch in terms of SEO than the previous version that only uses database entry numbers. Because this rewriting process is not always easy, and in fact in some cases may not be all that necessary, the first question you need to ask yourself is it really worth the trouble? Is your static-looking dynamic URL really going to be all that effective for SEO? How does it compare to actual static links? Let's explore this. Static links are by far more helpful in SEO for many reasons. First, a static link is permanent, and therefore easier and more likely to be crawled and indexed by a search bot. Secondly, the HTML format of static links can be easier to index with keywords. Take for instance the fact that you can create a web page file name with hyphens, such as Chicago Condo Real Estate Listings.htm. Google or other major search engines can read hyphens as a separator, and thus Chicago, condo, real estate, and listings would all act as separate keywords to help identify and index that page. Third, the static keyword-rich link has a better likelihood of users engaging in a higher click-through rate because those users can also easily see whether the keywords in the link are relevant to their search. And lastly, these static links are usually easier to remember or to copy and paste by users. The permanency of this static link gives confidence to users if they wish to forward the link or save it in a file. Now, all that said, even though static links are generally more advisable for SEO purposes, advancements in the bots have allowed major search engines to scan, to rank, and to index dynamic web pages. And these advancements are always being improved upon. Now, the biggest advantage of dynamic links is that you can create custom web page content with a template, with some CSS, and with a virtually unlimited amount of variables pulled from and posted on the web page. This has great benefits to users who are looking for that particular information. As noted by Google, dynamic pages are scanned by search engines and can be ranked and indexed. Google's algorithmic Googlebot is now able to scan and index a dynamic URL by ignoring separators, such as equals, dashes, and question marks, and focusing on the keywords themselves. So if you're already in a situation where your website is built to automatically generate dynamic links, you may want to consider leaving them dynamic, instead of going through all the trouble to convert them into static URLs. And as I said, rewriting dynamic links into static-looking URLs may not always be that straightforward. And of course, they can even produce site errors if not done correctly. Google itself provides the following recommendation. Avoid reformatting a dynamic URL to make it look static. It's always advisable to use static content with static URLs as much as possible, but in cases where you decide to use dynamic content, you should give us the possibility to analyze your URL structure and not remove information by hiding parameters and making them look static. So admittedly, I didn't really get down and dirty into all the finer points of the debate here, but hopefully this gives you a general overview of the situation. Static links are still considered to be more effective, since, for instance, they are more friendly for users to interpret. Although that said, the use of dynamic links is no longer considered as detrimental as it used to be. So this advice is not set in stone, but generally speaking, it's probably not worth the blood, sweat, and tears to completely restructure the way your site handles these links. And obviously, you should avoid doing so if you're not confident that you can do it correctly. But if you do have a large site that pulls from a database and generates dynamic URLs, and you're struggling in your SEO efforts, or are in a highly competitive industry and are looking for every little trick of the trade to help give you a boost in the search engines, then this issue could be worth looking into. And in that case, before you jump into the deep end, one of the best resources to investigate this subject further is the Googlebot Webmasters article, so you can immerse yourself in the details straight from the horse's mouth.